Hi, everyone. This isn't stand-up. I don't need the microphone. Go on. Have any of you been to a burlesque show before? Have any of you been told a story at a burlesque show before?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, there were occasional yeses, but mostly first-timers. This is my first time in San Jose, too. It's all of our first times in San Jose. So if you go gentle with me, I'll go gentle with you. Once there was a young man who lived in Baghdad, who was a porter by trade. And he would spend all of his days leaning against the walls, waiting for customers to come, looking to see if beautiful young women might be in need of his services. And what should happen? But one day, Allah saw fit to bless him with such a customer. Young, demure, fair-faced, but mostly hidden because she was modest. And she approached him and lowered her veil just a little so that he might know that she was fair-faced, and asked if she could use his services, and promised that if he would be fair with her, she would do well by him. Well, the porter did not need any persuading, and so off he went with her. He lifted a basket, and they went through the markets, and she filled it with all manner of goods until he was straining under the weight. And indeed, his very excitement soon turned to sorrow and terror. He said, "Oh, if only you had told me you had so much, I would have gotten a mule." But she lowered her veil again a little bit farther this time, but then returned it back, for she was demure and modest. Said, "Oh, but I saw that your muscles were so strong. Surely you can handle everything I need in my basket." And he smiled and stood straighter and said, "Oh, of course, and more besides." And so she filled it with more indeed, with fruits of all kinds, with meats by the pound, until finally, when he thought even for her he could bear it no longer, she took him to her house, which was in the old walled city, behind a gate like he had never seen before, carved wide to the very ceiling, as tall as in this very room. And everything was inlaid with gold in all sorts of strange, beautiful shapes. But when that door opened, what should he see but a second young lady, by far more beautiful than anything he had seen in the house. And when they went inside, he saw something more beautiful still, for both young ladies were home. And so it was. They did not need their traveling veils any longer. And then he saw something even more magnificent. A third young maiden, on a couch at the far back end of the hallway, and her face was like the moon had come down from the heavens. And he thought to himself, "Oh, truly, this has been my lucky day." But it was to get luckier still. For when they unpacked all of those meats, all of those fruits, and set up the table for a feast, why, it was clear that it was only the three of them. And so he humbly and very generously, out of the nobility of his heart, offered to help provide more company for their feast. For indeed, it is said throughout all of Baghdad that a feast cannot have merriment with only 3 people. Why, 4 are the minimum requirements for joy. And so those 3 young maidens agreed, and they sat, and they ate, and they drank, and they ate, and they drank, and then they drank, and they drank, and drank some more. And then, what should happen? But one of the young maidens was so besotted with wine that she got up, and she began to remove her clothes until she had not a stitch on her. And then she threw herself into a fountain that was in the center of the hall. She dashed under the water, splashed her hair back, arose, dripping wet, went to the porter, threw open his legs, threw herself between them, merrily resting, and then she spread open her legs and pointed between them and said, "Oh, good gentleman, can you tell me what is the name of this thing between my legs?" Why, that? Everyone knows. That is the pearl to heaven. Oh, you brute! And she fetched him a mighty slap across his face. No, that is not what it is called. Oh, well, then it must be the tunnel of love. Such vileness! And she slapped him again. Well, now he grew a little more desperate. Well, if it's not that, then it's the garden of eternal delight. How horrible! Also, he began again. What could he think of? It is your box of assorted creams. No! Your quivering mound of love pudding. No! Again. Well, now his face was bright red, and so he threw himself on the ground, prostrate before her, and begged, "Please, maiden, please have mercy upon me in the name of Allah. What is the name of the thing between your legs?" Oh, why, this? Oh, this is simply my husked sesame. Oh, Allah preserve you, husked sesame. How could I not have guessed? She sat down, but the second young maiden was so intoxicated by what she had seen that she too stood up. And she too, because she had drunk quite a bit, began to remove all of her clothes. Until she too had not a stitch on her. But you'll have to forgive the porter if he was considerably less excited when she dashed into the water, splished about, came up, and dripping wet, threw herself between his legs, and spread open her own and pointed. Oh, good sir, can you tell me what is the name of this thing between my legs? Well, he thought to himself, flowery words had not worked so well the first time, so he must go in a different direction. Why, that is your golden cookie. What? And she too slapped him. And so again, as before, he began to throw out everything he could think of, everything he had heard shouted to him when he was a little boy. That is the bearded gentleman. That is the sausage of heaven. That is the hedge before the door. The paved pathway. And to everything he guessed, she again slapped him, and again his face was even brighter, and so finally he threw himself before her and begged, "Oh, maiden, have mercy upon me. Please, what is the name of that between your thighs?" "Oh, by this? This is just my field of buttercups." Of course, your field of buttercups. Allah preserve you, field of buttercups. And so it is that the young porter was indeed not delighted at all, but rather quite terrified when the third young maiden stood up. And she, for she had been intoxicated by wine and watching the events, where she too removed all of her clothing. Until she too had not a stitch on her, and she splished and splashed within the fountain, swishing her hair. But the sight brought no joy to him at all, nor did the feel of her dripping, wet, naked body when she pressed it against him and spread open her thighs, and while at another time the sight which greeted him would have filled him with pleasure, this time it was indeed only terror that made his heart beat fast. Good sir, can you please tell me what is the name of this between my legs? Well, he had tried flowery language twice and less flowery language. That must be your slit. Such vileness! Your vulva. How could you? Your cunt! Never have I heard such foulness. Oh, please, young maiden. I think if I guess again, my face will begin to bleed or perhaps will fall out on the floor. Please have mercy upon me. What is the name of that between your legs? Oh, why, this? This is simply the Inn of Abu Mansour. Oh, the Inn of Abu Mansour. How could I not have guessed? Allah preserve you, O Inn of Abu Mansour. But then the porter had a thought. After all, what three young maidens could do, surely one virile young man. And so he stood up, and he removed all of his clothes, and And he threw himself in the fountain and splished and splashed, and then he went before the three young maidens, and he spread his legs, and he asked them to say, "What is the name of this between my thighs?" "Oh, why, we are like delicate young virgin maidens. We could not know the name of such a thing." "Oh, well, then, if you don't know, surely, and he had mercy upon them, surely I must tickle you." And so he began to tickle the three young maidens until they began to gasp. "Oh, well, that is your stallion." No. That is your resplendent sausage?" No, that is not it at all. That is your mighty chicken." It is your tool of pleasure." No. And so to every guest they made, he tickled and he pinched them until finally they laughed so hard that they finally all three gave up. And so they asked, "Oh, what is the name of that between your thighs?" "Oh, why this?" And indeed, all that merriment had made it stand more prominently at attention and size. "Why, this is my sturdy mule, which feeds on sesame, grazes in fields of buttercups, and spends the night at the inn of Abu Mansur." And so it was. And so I hope that all of you, especially those of you who are burlesque newcomers, will have such a lovely night after the show as the four young people had that night.